We went back and forth. Just a second. Oh, now it looks like it's started.
I did it.
Oh, somebody did
We're
it.
now
Thank you.
recording. Welcome.
Thank you. That's great. Hi, everybody. So we want to welcome you to our monthly Zoom meeting class that we're having. We've been holding these now for a little over a year, and we record them and put them up on our YouTube channel. And Rosie or Kathleen are kind of helping monitor the chat, and we will be putting interesting things or answering questions in the chat. So they'll put the link up for our YouTube channel. Also, I just want to make everyone aware that we have a really awesome website for our clan association. And so make sure you go there and get information what's going on. You can sign up for our newsletter that we've been doing bi-monthly, and it's all exciting work. So the Zoom meetings that we have coming up after this one today is on May the 9th. We'll be doing a panel in Donegal of local genealogy researchers and talking about doing research in Ireland, and also not just on the ground in Ireland, but also other resources available. On June 13th, Zach Dougherty and Mike Lakapo are going to be talking about our Y-DNA project that we have and the benefits of testing and collaborating in your research. And then, of course, our in-person gathering in Ireland, August the 12th through 15th. We're hoping that as many of you that are able to travel over to Inishowen to County Donegal will be able to join us. We have a great itinerary plan for that. So that's sort of all of the announcements. And I'm really excited to hear Brian give his presentation today. Brian is the son of Pat Dougherty, who many know as the opening founders of our modern Dougherty Clan Association. And he did great work both in Michigan before he immigrated to Ireland and then when he moved to Ireland. So I met him in 1985 at the first O'Doherty gathering, and had the privilege of working alongside him, trying to support his efforts for many, many years until he decided to retire and then focused on genealogy mostly for the rest of his life. So Brian's going to introduce himself, but I'm super excited about this presentation and excited that Brian's going to tell us about our modern Dougherty Clan Association.
Well, everybody hear me okay?
Good. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world, I guess. But as Eva said, I am one of the sons of Patrick Dougherty, basically our founder. I am the youngest of seven kids. Probably been the most involved with this whole this whole Dougherty research thing and finding out genealogy, and mainly because I had the tools behind me, I guess, especially when it came to work. I worked for General Motors for 43 years. As you can imagine, though, being the youngest of seven kids, there wasn't any money when I graduated high school to go to college. So I originally started out at the very bottom at General Motors, and then they eventually paid for me to go to school. And then I kind of went overboard and ended up with 4 degrees, and then had a very good career at General Motors. I'm now retired, but in during this presentation, hopefully I don't leave anybody important out. There's probably hundreds of people I could mention during this whole um, thing that we've been trying to put together now for probably almost 60 years. At least my dad has been working on it for that long before he passed away. So with that, I guess I'd like to share my screen and kind of get started on a presentation. Okay. Everybody see that right now?
Yeah, we've got it, Brian.
Okay, so as Eva mentioned, this is mainly about my dad, but also about the association. At some point in his life, By the time he probably reached 50, the two were kind of synonymous. If you were talking to my dad, he was talking genealogy and he was talking about the association. So at some point, they couldn't be divided, right? So leading up to mainly talking about my dad initially and explaining how his passion, how it started, why it started. And basically, when I think about my dad's life, I think about him as having two periods in his life. One was before he moved to Ireland, and then the rest was when he emigrated to Ireland, as Eva said, in 1985. So his life in Michigan, which is where he was born and raised, kind of, developed the man he would later become. And taught him, through education and then surviving, and then also more importantly for me, multiplying, as I mentioned earlier. So later on, when he did move to Ireland, he was able to take his lifelong education and experience and studies and turn that into his real passion, which was genealogy and the Dougherty Association. So he, as you can see here, he was born 100 years ago this year, which seems like a long time now, but he's been gone now about 9 years, 8, 9 years. So, but as I mentioned earlier, I think when we talk about the association or my dad, it's kind of important to talk about his backstory, and because it wasn't necessarily normal, at least what most people would consider normal. And I start basically with his mother. She was in the nunnery for about 20 years before she met my dad's dad, my grandfather, and they decided to get married and ended up having 5 kids. And my dad was the youngest of 5 children. Here's his family growing up. My dad is the guy there on the left. Like I said, he was a middle child. Um, and at some point, while they were quite young, all under the age of 10 years old, his father left and never returned. So you can imagine the turmoil that would have caused. But on top of that, the reason I think my grandfather left and never came back was the Great Depression. And this was a fairly common story in not only the US, but I think around the world, that during the Great Depression, people lost jobs, they lost their homes, they just lost the will to live in some cases and just kind of disappeared. And I think that's kind of what happened here with my dad. If you can imagine, now we have a mother that's all by herself. She was a school teacher by trade, but trying to raise 5 kids, all under the age of 10 during the Great Depression. So she did probably the only thing she could do, because she was very much still part of the church. She ended up farming her kids out to foster kids. And here's my foster grandparents, Avina and Claire Green. They had lost their one and only child that they had naturally at the age of about 7 to sleeping sickness, and they were never able to have children of their own. So they ended up fostering my dad. To my knowledge, they never officially adopted him, but they fostered him, and it was probably the best thing that could ever happen to my dad. They were both very well respected. My grandfather owned his own cement company. My grandmother was a teacher. And even though she was less than 5 feet tall, she was quite the taskmaster, probably the best word. In other words, if you got out of line, she whooped you pretty good, right? So I think she was the biggest reason for giving my dad discipline and setting the stage for his life, because it could have turned out quite a bit different with how it started out, right? So I'm sure they worked them hard. They had a farm, I'm sure between the animals and the farm work, they kept him busy at all times. In high school, he not only lettered in all of the sports, but he also boxed. And that discipline, I think, also made him a better student. And but he realized in his senior year of high school, which was 1942, he ended up enlisting into the Navy because of World War II. He knew he'd get adopted the minute he turned 18. So he ended up leaving school early, going into the Navy. And when the Navy found out he boxed, they had him box for the Navy at different events and different exhibitions. And then in the in between times, they had him run their athletic centers at whatever location he was located, whether it was Guam or on a ship or wherever, right? So he didn't necessarily see any real action like a lot of, the armed forces saw. And probably the biggest reason he survived and ended up having his kids, right? So when after the end of the war, he served about 2.5 years, and after the end of the war, he went back to his hometown and to marry my mother and to also go to college. And this is where my grandparents again, I think, had a big role because they allowed him to be able to go to college where he normally would not have been. Here he is on a farm, right? And then here he is in high school. And I kind of show this picture because my dad's the red star on the right. My mom is the middle star. And then her twin brother is to the left. Um, so they were all in the same class, and ended up my uncle and my dad were best friends. And that's how I think he got to know my mom. So ended up basically high school sweethearts. And then here's pictures of when he was ready to go into the Navy, right? All dressed up in his uniforms. This is while he's working in athletic center. I think this is on Guam. So some interesting pictures here. And then this shows him in his boxing pose. And I still have those gloves. To my knowledge, they're the same gloves he had back in the Navy. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they are the same. So that's kind of a nice thing to still have in my possession. So after the war, he came back, and my dad was basically a farmer at heart. And he grew up in a farming community, and he loved agriculture and horticulture. And so but he wanted to be a teacher. And as being a teacher at the local high school, he wanted to be able to teach his students how to be better farmers because he knew with them growing up on the farm that they would never be allowed to go to college. They were expected to take over the family farm. And so he wanted to be able to teach them to be better students or better farmers, basically. So it was a kind of interesting. He went to what's called today Michigan State University. It's nicknamed the Cow College here in the state of Michigan. But my mother, who's here on the right, she ended up going to the University of Michigan for her degrees. And even to this day, they're extremely big rivals, as you can imagine. So even currently, my wife has also graduated from Michigan State, and I went to U of M. So those rivals during college, during sports seasons tend to be a little heated sometimes, but somehow we all still get along and, don't fight too much, right? So yeah, as I said, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and they ended up having us all within 9 years. So here's some pictures of my mom and dad getting married. So not a big deal here. This is their wedding invitation here or announcement in the paper. This is them after they got married. Um, yeah, so some interesting stuff. On the left is my uncle, my mom's twin brother and her, and then my dad and my mom being on the right. So yeah, so here we are with his immediate kids. Like I said, 7 kids. I'm the cute little guy there in the middle on the left. Um, with my mom being a twin, she tried to dress us all up on twins because we were all so close in age. But of course, we hated it at the time, right? So, as you can imagine, though, with the stress of raising seven kids, my mom and dad basically had to move to a different city every single school year until my dad was able to get tenure. I think the stresses got a little bit too much of them, and sometime when I was quite young, they ended up getting divorced, right? So that part of it didn't work out so well, but I think he had seven great kids, right? So as my dad finally did get tenure, he was able to get back. Here's some family pictures. He was able to get back into the high school that him and my mom actually graduated from. And I think some of the board members really wanted him to come back into the school and teach there. So I think they gave him a pretty good offer. And while he was there, even at the high school, though, he taught the Golden Gloves program. He ran the 4-H program in the FFA program. And I don't know if everybody knows what they mean, but FFA is Future Farmers of America. 4-H had to do with, and now I just put myself on the spot because I can't remember what all the 4-H's are, but they're horticulture, home, um, I can't even remember the others now. I should have looked it up first. Sorry. But here's my dad actually teaching students. And like I said, he was one of those teachers, and anybody who got to know my dad would agree with this, that he was one of those teachers that was fully involved with the students. If they got in an accident, he went to the hospital to visit them. If they were sick, he took homework to their house. He was just one of those guys that everybody loved, right? So, my own relationship with my dad was more as I became an adult. Because of the divorce, we all lived with my mom. And so I got to know him more as I got older, more like 16, 17, 18. And we actually roomed together for a while in an apartment. And so it was a little different relationship with me and my dad. We were more kind of best buds than we had the traditional father son relationship, right? And it's because of him growing up in a foster family, and he knew he had an Irish last name, but he didn't know anything else about Ireland. He certainly didn't know anything about his name. He kind of loosely was involved with his siblings, but they were also all fostered out, so they maybe only saw each other once a year. And I think because of this deep seated notion of wanting to know where he came from is what really turned him on to genealogy. And as a teacher, he was constantly trying to learn new trades, right? So, um, sometime in the late 60s is when he was, his career was finally stabilized. He could think out beyond just surviving day to day. That he really felt that he could start researching his genealogy. Still got people joining here and there, so that's good. So, anyways, let me go back to that one. So, I don't know if a lot of people remember the movie Roots, early 70s, but I'm going to say my dad kind of got the bug even before that movie came out. And I think that movie just kind of made it more of a passion for him than anything else, right? So his desire to really find out more about his heritage really ramped up at this point in time. And he also, I think, realized was beginning to learn that there was multiple ways to spell Doherty's, and I think it's anywhere from I don't know 144 or something like that, different ways to spell the Doherty last name, right? So, um, as he would go out on vacation or go places for work, he would go to the payphone, which they don't really exist anymore, but he would go to a payphone and he would go to the phone book and he would rip out every page with the last name of Doherty. And he would come back and write individual letters to everyone on whatever list he got, right? and it had to have been literally thousands. And some of them wrote back, some of them probably threw the letter away. We don't really know how many got back with him, but eventually he realized that the people who did write back, that he was getting so much information from people. He needed some type of file system, right? He needed some way to keep people straight and to coordinate all this information, because he was not only asking for people to maybe join him in this quest, but to also give as much family history as they could. And part of it was for his own benefit, because he did not have that connection with the Dougherty name. He didn't know a single thing, right? So he was hoping the information that people would send him would actually help him in this quest. And so he started to kind of categorize people into family group names. And of course, our family was family group number one, right? Made things kind of easy. But I can remember moving them probably in the mid 70s, and he had dozens of heavy metal file cabinets that he'd already accrued with all the information. And it was quite the ordeal to have to move them and move all of these file cabinets, right? So, yeah, it became quite the big deal. Um, as a teacher, he had quite a bit of time off throughout the year, whether it was a long holiday vacation at Christmas time or even mostly the summers. So he realized that he'd gotten probably as far as he could here, writing letters and then in the United States. So he decided he needed to travel to Ireland. And this would have been early 70s time frame. And these trips to Ireland were fact-finding trips, so he didn't really sightsee at all. He went to every cemetery, every church records, parliament building for records, government buildings, and started to just write down every scrappy information he could get. And you can kind of understand his surprise when he finally made it up to the north of Ireland in County Donegal, and was shocked to find that everybody he met was a Dougherty. So that really opened his eyes to what is this whole genealogy thing, and is this where I came from, or do I have family still living here? I'm sure we've all thought that at some point in time, those of us that have worked on our genealogy, right? But sometime in during the winter holidays in 77, while he was traveling in Ireland, he sat down at a restaurant in Buncrana to take a break and trying to make sense of this overwhelming amount of data that he'd been collecting, right? And he must have been looking perplexed or confused or whatever, because the only other couple in the restaurant that day struck up a conversation with him. And come to find out, this was a husband and wife team, Neil and Helen Dougherty. And my dad's trying to explain what he's trying to do. And they're, once they introduce themselves, they're like, hey, we got this connection, right? And my dad's been quoted as saying that conversation inadvertently planted the seeds of creating a worldwide Dougherty Research Association sometime in the near future, right? So just just having a conversation with people in that restaurant is what set the seeds to create something like an organization. And my dad did have a little bit of experience with that. He has created other organizations here in the state of Michigan, everything from historical societies to not genealogy, but horticultural societies. in some of the counties he lived in, and believe it or not, they still are running today. So, and he was a founding member there. But so after he got back to Michigan, he started writing letters again the old-fashioned way, right? Sending out letters to all the Doughertys he'd already been in contact with, and some newer ones, and basically asking their opinion if they felt a centralized research association was something that should be investigated and should be, created in the future, right? And as you can imagine, at this time, with the term snail mail, right? It took quite a bit of time to get responses, right? So it wasn't something that was going to happen right away, but kind of a secondary effect of him getting invited, or secondary effect of writing all these letters out, is he got invited to dozens of family reunions from anywhere from Canada to Texas. And my first wife and I actually ended up going with him to a lot of these smaller family reunions. And my dad was usually a guest speaker, and was talking about his dreams of, what maybe this association could be. He would talk about his travels to Ireland. He would bring research, data, and try to help people connect with their past while he was there. But we met a lot of good families during those time frames, traveling to their family reunions, right? And he was so excited that he ended up getting his siblings involved, and pretty much all of his kids, right? Because this was a huge undertaking he was thinking about doing. So during the and I'm going to slip to the next slide. Oops. So in 1981, he'd concocted an idea about having a North American family reunion of all Doughertys. And obviously, we started planning for this around 79, 80. And this is where he really started to get family members involved. And because this was a big deal, right? Nothing like this had really been happened before, that to our knowledge. And so here's kind of the announcement on the left, and then on the right was actually our itinerary. And of course, during these planning sessions, we also talked about having that centralized association, right? So on his trip to Ireland in the summer of 80, my dad actually put up these flyers, basically the flyer on the left, all over Ireland and strategic places, mainly up in Derry and Irish and Donegal, right? Um, Inviting people to this reunion, right? That we were going to have in North America. And when I say North America, it was physically in Michigan. Made sense to have it there. And the gardens that he talks about are actually gardens that he created through his schooling and with the students. So he was kind of proud to show that off, right? So one of these flyers, though, caught the eye of a gentleman called Paddy Bogside Dougherty. He lived in Derry. He was basically an employee of the city of Derry, or Londonderry, depending on what you're familiar with. And he was in tight with the mayor. And he sat down with the mayor. At the time, it was John Fagan was the mayor of Derry. And they got discussing this, and it kind of formed the spark. And because at the time, Derry was through most of their troubles that they'd had for decades, and they were trying to rebuild and trying to make the city of Derry into an international city that people would want to come to, right? So they put together basically a scheme that Paddy Bogside Dougherty would travel to America, come to this reunion in 1981, and invite everybody to Derry for a worldwide reunion in 1985. So that's kind of how that started. And my first wife and I were very honored to have Paddy and his wife Eileen actually stay with us, not only that time, but several times in the future. So it was great to get to know him. And I think he had 14 children, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he was pretty prolific, Patty was. But so Patty decided to come to the reunion. And this is a picture of Patty Bogside on the left and my dad on the right. They're cutting the cake for the opening ceremony. And this is another picture of Patty giving the opening speech. And then at the end of this reunion, which lasted a couple days, Patty basically invited us all back, or invited us all to Derry for a reunion in 1985. So all of a sudden, this whole thing took a next step upward. Not a small step, but a giant step, right? And Patty Bogside, who again is not with us anymore, was one of the most interesting men I've ever met. Very dynamic, very full of energy, really looking to, get the city of Derry rebuilt. He was very much actively involved with everything that happened in Derry at that time. And I think I once asked him what he did for a living, and he told me he was the only non-military government employee on the payroll at that time. So kind of an interesting way to explain how your job is, right? But his job was to help Ireland into the future, right? So, anyways, over the next few years, Patty and my dad, Patrick, ended up writing letters back and forth to get, trying to plan things. Um, and I did kind of leave out one part. This reunion in '81. Here's a picture of my family. Again, I'm the guy on the right. This is all of us in order. My oldest brother, Patrick, my dad's namesake, had already been killed in an automobile accident. So here's the six remaining children, all lined up in order of birth, right? So even though I'm the youngest, I ended up being the biggest. So that really helped, believe me. But during this reunion, we had around 800 people come. And they came from Canada, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Georgia, even as far as Texas, right? So it really became quite a big deal. And to have that many people show up was kind of beyond our expectations, right? So, what a great way to kick all of this off. And so over the next few years, Patty and my dad, Patrick, wrote a lot of letters back and forth. There were a lot of committees created, not only in the city of Derry, but pretty much the whole Inishowen wanted to get involved with this Dougherty reunion in '85, right? And let me go back one. So a lot of different committees. I certainly don't want to leave any names out, but it's probably too many people to actually list today. But um, even organizations like Aer Lingus got involved, and Board Fáilte, which is kind of the tourism board, and then the Northern Irish Tourism Board also got involved. So again, during the planning over the next year or so, um, after the success of the '81 reunion is when the Dougherty Research Association was actually formally formed. And it would have been formally formed in the winter of '82, or actually the January of 1982. And these are kind of in my dad's own words here, that after coming down from Heritage High in a very successful '81 reunion, and with lots of support from Doughertys around the world, the Dougherty Association, whoops, did we lose my sharing?
It does look like your sharing bumped off, Brian, if you want to try and reconnect
We
that.
want to continue. Yes. Huh. Okay. Somehow I got bumped out. Somebody more important must have got on. Anyway, so again, this is in his own words. So the association was formed. Sorry, changing pages, sticking together. Its mission was to promote friendship and explore the heritage of the Dougherty tribe by compiling information about the clan to assist Doughertys and others in their search of their ancestry, provide an extensive library about the Dougherty history, including the Inishowen and Donegal history, as well as Ireland as a whole, provide a community where Doughertys keep in touch with one another around the world, either through newsletters or written letters, different notifications, and eventually, when the electronic age hit, through websites and electronic communication, and then organized clan reunions, which is a big part of this. And then membership was basically open to anybody with a Dougherty last name or anybody associated with the Doughertys or that had some kind of connection to the Dougherty name, right? So again, this is in my dad's own names. The gradual development of the clan association was the outgrowth of the Dougherty reunion held in St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada in 1979, and also the curiosity and enthusiasm of my dad. He was elected chairman of the reunion committee of the Toronto or Canadian Reunion Committee in 1979, with instructions from the outgoing chairman, Mr. Stanley Dougherty, who I also knew quite well, to the effect that we would like Pat to expand the research out in the other parts of the USA and even the world. So this is how this is all kind of exploding. This is going from my dad having this little hobby, right? To all of a sudden now the whole world's involved, or at least that's what it seems like. So these instructions from Stan Dougherty proved to be rather prophetic, because of what happened at the 81 reunion. It really ignited the final decision to create an Dougherty Research, Family Research Association, right? And the headquarters were to be held in Michigan, where my dad was, and he was also voted president and clan herald of that association. And then in 1983, he was invited to the Dougherty Barnesville, Ohio reunion, and another one in 84 in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And he was by then basically spreading the word about the reunion in 85. And at each of these, again, other family reunions, he was a guest speaker. So it really started to explode, like I said. So here's kind of the organization of the original association, my dad being president. And then you can see, we had it broke down, not only president, vice president, secretaries, treasurers, and a lot of these are quite frankly his siblings. So he had people in different areas that he knew he could trust and he could know, but we also had different representatives in different states that kind of helped us spread word. As you can imagine, a lot of the earlier newsletters, again, no electronic means of sending them out. They were very expensive to produce and mail. Believe it or not, the mailing, I think, was the most expensive part of that. Not that it didn't cost my dad some money to create these newsletters. And quite frankly, he paid for all of it himself, right? But also about this time, the personal computer was coming kind of into fruition. And with that, my dad saw the perfect tool to manage and sort and combine this huge data of information that my dad had pulled together, especially when it came to the different family groups, right? And quite frankly, the biggest disadvantage with the earlier computers at this time was the memory. He would basically max out a computer about every 6 months, and we were constantly either upgrading the computers or his memory, right? So the other thing that kind of happened was, because of the reunion in 81 and Patty Bogside Dougherty inviting us all to Ireland in 85, really kind of changed the direction of my dad's life in a big way, because he knew he couldn't help plan this 85 reunion from Michigan. He had to be there in the middle of it, not only in the middle of all these different committees, but also in the middle of Dougherty country, right? So he basically followed his dream, retired, sold everything he had here, and basically moved to Ireland in preparation of this reunion. In the summer of '84, when he traveled there, he actually was looking for a house to buy. And this is a house he ended up finding. It's called Inch House. We are no longer in possession of it, unfortunately. I won't get into the reasons why, but he ran this as the Dougherty Research Association headquarters for several decades, a couple of decades, anyways. And here's kind of an aerial view. Huge grounds, beautiful location, beautiful manor house. And it was set on an island, although you could still drive there, right? You didn't have to take a boat or anything. So, but he found this place and very excited when he came back home to Michigan. He got all the major players involved with the Dougherty Association at that point in time, and we kind of pooled all our money together and we bought this place, right? So by the time he retired and moved there in early 1985, he'd already had possession of the house, and he basically at that point in time hired every teenager he could get a hold of and helped them move in. And he basically went around to every furniture shop in the whole area and bought out all the furniture, just to have this place set up in time for the reunion '85. So here's a couple of slides. One of the big slogans we adopted at the time was "Strive to Arrive in '85." And then another one we would pass around was 1985, the year of the Dougherty. And again, here's a newspaper article on the left, also talking about it. And it ends up, he was actually in several newspapers. Here's kind of some of the different reunion flyers that we put out with, what was on the itinerary. Here's another newspaper article that he was actually placing a cornerstone on the Dougherty Fort for anybody who's been there in Derry. It was being rebuilt by Patty Bogside and by that's the current mayor at the time there. In the picture with my dad, but they were able to rebuild that, and not in time for the '85 reunion, but I think by the '90 it was completely done. But anyway, so this '85 reunion, because of so many towns, local towns being involved, pretty much the whole Inishowen, including Derry, my dad and probably the committees, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. I talk about my dad being the only one doing all the work. He was not the only one doing all the work. He had hundreds, if not thousands, of people helping him. But I do believe that without his fortitude and pushing the cause, I think a lot of it would have fallen by the wayside. So I kind of talk about him like he was, the superhero of all this, but he couldn't have done any of it without all the people helping him, right? But because of how big this '85 reunion was looking to be, he decided to run it as two-week sessions. And they were each basically going to be somewhat identical in activities, right? So about the same time, this was a newspaper article in our local Detroit Free Press, and it talks about him moving to Ireland and doing the reunion, right? So a lot of free press, for want of a better word, a lot of people getting the word out there. But during this reunion, and I was there, I'm just gonna kind of list some of the things that were going on. There were flag raising ceremonies, there were Kaylee dances, there were different workshops, there were guest speakers, there were waltzes, there were traditional modern music events and concerts. There were civic receptions, at the mayor's hall there in Derry. There were hurling matches in our honor. There were football matches. There were medieval banquets, vintage car rallies, which I'm a big vintage car guy, so that was important. A lot of formal dinners. There was even a beauty contest happening at the time. Um, Bus tours he took to historical places around the Inishowen, historical talks. There's horse racing going on. There was some golf competitions. There was even a barn dance. There were, like I said, different kinds of concerts. There were fashion shows. There were some youth plays, and there were some country and western nights. So this was a big, 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 big deal, right? And it all came together pretty good, I want to say, for the amount of people involved, right? So it was a huge success, brought a huge economic boost to the area, and basically people there from every continent, all with ties to the name of Dougherty, right? There's been estimated between 4,000 and 6,000 people that came to that first reunion. There's been some newspapers that said there was as much as 10,000, but quite frankly, we didn't really count. We don't really know. Was it in the thousands? Absolutely. It was huge, right? Um, in fact, like I mentioned, my wife and I were there for this one, and my dad basically worked my first wife so hard she never ever wanted to come back to another reunion. So you can imagine he was pretty spastic at the time and working everybody as hard as they can work, right? So there are different articles. I showed some, but New York Times wrote an article, the World Press, Chicago Tribune, the Times Herald, and pretty much all of the local papers ran some type of article because they had never seen anything like this ever. This was like the biggest thing that had ever happened, right, for the area. So, um, yeah. So, at some point during this 85 reunion, though, it was announced that they were going to try to put one on every 5 years. And since then, we did the 85, the 90, and then 95, 2000, 2005. There was a specialty one in 2008 to honor Kahurua O'Doherty, one of the last chieftains of the clan. 2010 and then 2015. There's been a couple unsanctioned ones since, but they weren't ran by the committee, so I won't really talk about those at the moment. They were all very successful in their own right. I know I'm also, I kind of have to brag. I'm the only person that's been to every single family reunion that's ever been given, especially the worldwide ones. But um, there's been some of note, though. The one in 1990, my dad and all the kind of big players involved at the time did a who's who of the clan and put it into a book form. So that was kind of cool to be mentioned in that. In 2000, in the 2000 reunion, my dad, my brother Cameron, and I were all knighted by the Irish Parliament for our roles in the reunions and tourism. As I mentioned, the one in 2008 was the 400th anniversary of the death of Kahurua, the last ruling king of the clan. Um, this is a picture of me being knighted, so kind of a cool deal. Something I not that it gives me any extra money or anything, but it's just something I can brag about, right? It's kind of cool. Here's a picture of my dad, my brother Ron Cameron, and some people may know him. And then Shorsha O'Doherty, which is also a big helper of my dad at the time. So I want to mention that basically, as my dad got a little bit too old to kind of handle the reunions, that I think Eva took over in 2005. So she did the 2005, 2008, 2010, 2015, carried on the tradition very well. They were wonderful reunions. She did a very good job. And then there was plans for having a sanctioned one in 2020, but that little pesky COVID thing came along and kind of put the caboose, put the stop to that. So unfortunately, we're just trying to get that momentum going back again. Eva talked about at the beginning of this of our gathering here this summer. So go to the website if you need more information about that. Here I'm going to show some other pictures of different people at the reunions. I don't know if anybody recognizes the lady in the middle, but that is Patty Hearst. She has been to our reunions for anybody who knows that name. She got to be quite famous in the 70s, and the term Stockholm Syndrome was invented for her. But she married her bodyguard, if you guys can remember, Bernard Shaw, which is on the left. His mother was a Dougherty. So they actually have a place in the Inniskilling that they travel to all the time. And they've been to several of the reunions. So it's kind of cool to have people like that at the reunion. Of course, here my dad is having a beer with them. So it was kind of nice to do that. Here's some other pictures of different events. Here's where we kind of show off the who's who. So we've got my dad on the right. We've got Texas Jack there next to my dad. He was from Texas, obviously. We got Finbar Dougherty, who is a dairy citizen, very involved with a lot of the different publications over the years. And I can't remember who's on the left, though. So I have to refresh my memory. Here's my dad actually showing a picture of the Spanish Dougherty, Ramon, who ended up being chosen as our chieftain because he was the only one who had direct descendancy to Kaharua, which was the last ruling king. So that's him there. Or I should say it's Salvador, right? I said Salvador. So again, here's another picture of both families together. My dad, my brother Cameron, Salvador from Spain, his wife, his son, and then me on the left there. So it's kind of all of us coming together. My dad being the clan herald, and that Salvador being the clan chieftain, right? So it was kind of nice that we were always together doing stuff. So one of the things that's always kind of stuck with me, though, with with my dad when he got over to Ireland and started planning this stuff, he always had trouble getting the locals involved. Although he tried. So that's always been a challenge. And then he was kind of hated or loved by the local Irish people because here you've got this foreigner coming in and taking charge and bossing people around, and a lot of them didn't like that. But the ones who saw what good he was doing, especially with the economy, tourism, how successful the reunions were, they loved him for what he was doing for the local economy, right? So just kind of interesting that it's kind of like our current president, right? You either hate him or you love him, right? So just kind of interesting dynamics. Now, one of the things my dad got really good at over the years too was being able to get grants out of the government. So not only would they help him keep an office of people to do genealogy research, but it would also help him put on the reunions, right? So very nice there. He also continued to teach kind of adult classes in horticulture and ornamental landscaping while he was in Ireland. So that was kind of nice too. Let's see. So yeah, my brother Cameron, unfortunately, he really was a natural for taking things over from my dad with the association. He loved history, loved the association, loved the genealogy. I was always more kind of on the fringe of things. I was there as a muscle guy, as a support guy. They were kind of the brains of the organization, but unfortunately, my brother protracted cancer and ended up dying in 2014, and so much of everything was kind of lost during that period because my dad had gotten real bad dementia by then and was forgetting more than he remembered. And then my brother dying quite suddenly, where we thought we had many years, right, to kind of pass the torch, so to say. So it really was a sad time between 2014, 2017. I actually lost two siblings during that time, plus my dad. And it kind of put us back on a lot of ways. So I really give kudos to Eva and the organization. Here's the who's who here, for kind of carrying things on while we all kind of disappeared. Again, different pictures of different people coming to the reunions. My dad usually in all of these. I'm there on the left on this picture. My daughter, who's now, I won't mention how old she is, but that's her in the green shirt on the left. Um, so yeah, a lot of different people. Here's a big group of people that came to some of the reunions. It's usually my first wife taking the pictures too, so she's usually not in these pictures. But here's a couple of pictures of my dad. The one on the right was kind of his funny side. He was actually sticking his tongue out at me, so but he's given the speech there on the left, right? So kind of nice. But and then here's we're actually at the with the current mayor at the time doing a presentation of the who's who, and my dad's wife at the time, Darlene Dougherty, who's no longer with us. I'm in the middle, my first wife on the right, and then my son and daughter on the two outside, and then Finbar is there on the right also. So it was kind of quite the thing there for a lot of years. Big movement. Really had a lot of momentum going, and then I feel like we kind of had to take a step back when we had all these deaths, right? And not only because of my dad and my brother, but other people that were involved with all the local committees. They were all getting up there in age, and unfortunately, a lot of them were dying and not necessarily passing the torch on, maybe to the next generation, right? So over the years, we've had over 60 different newsletters. My dad did a lot of the earlier ones. My brother did some of them. A lot of other people in the association took on newsletters for different years. Of course, Stan Dougherty now does our current newsletter, so kudos to him. Um, I mentioned earlier that wherever there was a money shortage, whether it was on the reunions or publications, my dad's actually was the one who paid out of his own pocket. In fact, I kind of was rereading through some of his stuff, and he got kind of burned on that first reunion because um, at almost every big event, a marching band showed up and a PA system showed up, which was wonderful because it allowed them to reach a lot of different people out in the audience, right? But after all the dust settled on that first reunion, they ended up sending him a bill for the band, and he's like, I never requested this, and I didn't hire the PA systems. I assumed the local towns supplied these, right? And I think he kind of argued with them for over a year, and then he just finally paid it because the association didn't have enough money in their coffers to certainly pay for that. So he just paid for it himself. Over the years, he's personally financed a lot of Irish musicians and illustrative artists. I mentioned Shortia earlier in that picture. He was a beautiful singer songwriter. He sang pretty much strictly in Gaelic, which is a beautiful language to hear sung. It seems like impossible to speak it, but it's quite beautiful when it's sung. And then Roy Dougherty Arbuckle actually did an album also associated with our clan. So it was quite cool to do at the times. He was also featured in several different videos done over the years. The picture on the right is the Lapeer Area Horticultural Society that he created. He was the founding members of. Our governor actually posthumously created this plaque and was honoring my dad a couple of years back. So it's kind of cool that his legacy still goes on, right? So So again, I know it kind of makes this presentation of my dad sound like he was doing everything by himself, but he definitely was not. He'd be the first one to give credit to all the people around him, all the people that helped him. Like I said, it's too many to list. Um, and he never took credit really for pretty much anything he did, right? So here's some different pictures of my dad later on after he came back to Michigan. He had to have heart surgery. He developed bad dementia. On the left was with my brother Dennis, which I don't know if he finally joined this discussion or not. On the right is my older sister Treese. Um, I had the pleasure last summer of the four remaining siblings, these two, my brother Kevin and myself, traveling Ireland and going to all the places my dad lived and where we had the reunions and doing stuff because some of my siblings had never been there. So again, here's one in front of a greenhouse he built back in the 60s when he was a teacher, and it's still standing today. So quite the legacy. Here's again my brother Dennis, myself, my dad, and then my current wife Emily. On a picture, we were on a road trip to a family wedding outside of Chicago, so that was kind of nice. Again, kind of a collection of different pictures as he got older. He always had a smile on his face, even when he developed dementia. Um, just, just always smiling and always helping people. That tendency to go up to everybody he meets in a restaurant and ask them what their last name is and start talking to them about their genealogy never left them, even with dementia. And there's more than one time I thought somebody was going to call the police on him and get him arrested when he walked up to a lady and especially asked her, hey, what's your maiden name and or your given name or whatever, right? And yeah, but he always was so unassuming and smile on his face. He always struck a conversation with pretty much everybody he met and never got the police caught him, and as far as I know. And yeah, so oops, sorry, I went too far. So it wouldn't be a final slide without showing. I did it again. So let me zip through this real quick. Without showing a poem my older sister Therese wrote for my dad when he passed away. And then it went back to the full screen. Sorry about that. But so I don't know if while we do a question and answer, I'll leave that up for anybody who wants to read it. My sister has become quite the poet over the years. And I'm going to open it up to questions to the audience while you read the poem, I guess.
Well, with you sharing your screen, it might be hard for us to tell if people have questions because we can't see them.
You want me to unshare then?
Yeah, it might make.
Okay, where's my mouse? My mouse disappeared. Come on. There we go. Come on.
Yeah, your dad was an amazing man and was very gregarious as well as you said, as humble too.
Yeah.
He dedicated his retirement years and as you said, much of his fortune to this cause that he believed in. So, and it's not that we're carrying the torch for him. I think that there's many of us that have that same feeling of gathering the clan and doing what we can so people can feel that connection.
And I know I've mentioned this to some of you before that I was spoiled because my dad did all the hard work on the Dougherty side, but even on my mom's side, her last name was Sherman. Her and her twin brother able to go back about 1,500 years on her side, and my dad was able to go back before Christ on our side. So I never had to do any of the work. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. I've been to every reunion. I've always wanted to be involved, but I never had to do the hard lifting, right? Like he did. So I'm spoiled because all the information is there for me, more than I can actually absorb. Yeah, it's just sometimes overwhelming. I've been trying to go back and reread some of his stuff and research some of it, and I'm telling you, it can be overwhelming. So I can't imagine what he went through when he was traveling all over Ireland and just writing down everything he could find.
Yeah.
Brian, that was amazing. Thank you so much, because I found out a lot more about your dad than I ever knew before,
Okay.
and everything that he's done. And that's just absolutely incredible. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Is there anybody that had any questions or want to make any comments? You could, even if those of you that have your screen on, even if you wave your hand up, we can call on you. Yes, Jake? No, you're waving your hand. You're being an example. Good example. Yeah.
I'm just a newcomer to this group and to this meeting, and so I'll just listen for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're glad to have you for sure.
And
Yeah.
Brian, I'm sure your dad must have known my Doughertys from Inch Island and his time there.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What is it, Charlie Dougherty? Was it that family?
Daniel
Daniel.
Dougherty, and his
Yeah,
son was John,
okay.
John was my granddad.
Yeah. Charlie's the one I know the most because we always had to invade his property to go see Inch Castle. Right. It was actually on his property. So we got to know him and his children better. But I do remember all the ones. I sometimes I have to apologize to people because I've literally, and this is all through my dad, I have met tens of thousands of Doughertys, and I can't remember them all. Right?
Oh, he could.
Oh, yeah.
He could. He was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, I
There was some.
appreciated you sharing those pictures of Inch, the house on Inch. I just have such fond memories of being out
Oh,
there.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, just so great to look back on all that. Um, for those of you that have been here on, you'll see I've posted a bunch of things in the chat. Don't miss those. There's things about the gathering. There's the information on how you can contact McCrory's so that you could get bookings there to stay there. It really is life changing, even if it's just a once in a lifetime thing for you to be able to come to one of these gatherings. You'll connect with people that will become lifelong friends. You'll get to know yourself in a completely different way in your history and your heritage. I'm sure any of you that have already been could like raise your hand and be like, yes, that's exactly what happens, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't miss all that information that's in there. And we do offer these Zoom classes for free, but of course, any of your donations just helps the gatherings to go forward, helps the Y-DNA project to go forward. There are individuals over there that it would be amazing if we could do Y-DNA tests on them, but of course, they are a little bit expensive, and so we do need those donations to keep that project moving forward too. I kind of unofficially wear the fundraising hat on our board, and so I have no qualms about saying if you enjoy our classes, if you enjoy all this, we don't charge anything for it at all. Please make a donation so that we can help make that research even more precise and get those Y-DNA tests done while those particular people are still living. Like the time is of the essence, right? So please forgive my shameless plug, but there it is.
Matthew Wallace Gross has raised his hand. Where are you, Matthew?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You got a question?
Yeah, well, first let me say thank you for a very informative presentation. I've come late to the O'Doherty clan. My dad was an adoptee, so we found out the connection. His father was a Dougherty, so it's been interesting. Everything that I've learned and all of the great work that folks like Eva and Kathleen and Zach and others have done to provide this venue for the clan members to learn more and to communicate with each other. So it's been great. So I appreciate all of you and all of that. So I came in unfortunately a few minutes late. I was busy doing some other things and joined a little late. So you may have already said this, and I don't know if you have, but so forgive me if you've already stated it. But I know I did the Y-DNA test myself, as many other male members have done. And I'm just curious, Brian, are you up on that the O'Doherty Y-DNA? Sure, is your info up there yourself?
Yeah, so I did have it in my notes to talk about, and somehow I skipped over it. But my dad was one of the earlier proponents of this. He pushed for it right from pretty much the professor who created this, and he was in England, if I remember correctly. Can't remember his name though. He was in contact with my dad almost immediately after this kind of became a thing. And the earlier ones, I think, were only 16 markers. And then eventually they increased it to, 32 and then 48. But I never had to do it because my brother and my dad both did it. So yeah, they were both on the list. I'm rethinking this though, that even my brother, the last one he took, may have only been a 48 marker. Um, so I might have to think about doing it myself, just simply because theirs might be outdated or not as much information tied to it, I guess.
Yeah,
So
check with
I'm
Zach.
sorry.
Yeah.
Check with Zach. Yeah.
No, he
So
was a big
your
believer.
brother's on there, you say your brother's info's on there and
Yeah.
your dad's info's on there?
Yes, both Cameron and Patrick, both. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
And I'm also, the more I think about this, not sure how much of their information was on a centralized database. I mean, they might have just went through one group and it never got, shared overall. I guess I got to find out more about that, about the current technology, because, my brother's been gone for 12 years. My dad's been gone for 9. And when they had it done was probably around 2010. So, yeah.
Eva, can Jack Zach help?
Further.
Oh, yeah, that's what I told Brian to contact Zach. He'll know.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah. But Zach wasn't able to join us today. So he had another commitment.
No, so that's, to answer your question, that's a wonderful thing, actually, the Y-DNA. So
yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Matthew. He was traveling in Ireland with his son, and we got a chance to connect. That was really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, have we got some of your family on this call tonight?
Yeah, so I noticed some nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
Some of them I think have already bailed out, but yeah, all the way. I got one nephew. He's down in, I forget where he's at, in the island somewhere, but he joined us. Yeah, got I guess my niece is still on. A couple of nephews, yeah. Some of them I knew couldn't make it because they wanted to know, if it got recorded, they'd look at it later, because there is an event that a lot of them are at today where they couldn't join us. So, yeah, I'm just happy for the support, the ones who were able to join, and they knew a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, my dad had already moved to Ireland before some of them were born. So they really didn't know my dad personally, although some of them were able to go to Ireland at one time or another. So it's good that they learn their heritage and, where they came from too. So.
Yeah, we're glad to have them here. And it's nice to meet some of your family. We've all got this shared history. And Lionel David Sanchez, you've got a wee question?
That's one of the nephew. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was in the middle of a meeting for most of this, but I caught a good amount of it. Truly incredible, very emotional hearing about all of it, and truly beautiful presentation and heritage, and excited to learn more. So I'll definitely dive into it. And thank you for sharing the links and the presentation. It was truly incredible. I look forward to learning more about it.
So I forgot
Thanks, Lionel.
where you living now, Lionel?
Yes, Dominican Republic. My wife and I bought a place there, and beautiful. Enjoying my other grandfather was, born in Cuba, so I have the island Caribbean life in me, and I'm embracing it very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well,
No, thank you.
Ireland has an island life too, but not really Caribbean. The weather's a bit different, but
Yeah, just a wee bit. Yeah.
yeah. So good to
Forget
see
any
you,
other
George.
questions?
I was just going to say, good to see you, George.
Hey, George.
Yep. And Peggy Curtis, she's on. Yep. It's good to see some of you that we know. And
please share information with your friends and family, and let them know about these Zoom classes and the association, and encourage others to come along. And we've put in the chat the links to the website and the newsletter and all the rest of it. So please feel free to share that and get the message out, because we're just trying to, pull together people with shared heritage and an interest in their past and their ancestors. So, if this has been useful to you, please do feel free to share with others. The links are in the chat. And but thank you all for coming along and being part of this. And thank you to Brian. Brian, that's amazing history. Really appreciated that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
yeah, it was really heartwarming to see some of those older pictures too. And
Yeah.
of course, I don't remember meeting you in 1985, but I certainly do remember meeting your dad.
Yeah, I was there.
So,
I was usually in the background doing all the work because
yeah,
he couldn't be everywhere at once, right? So I was taking care of all the grunt work, and he was out there, meeting people, which is fine. That's exactly, what I was there for, support. So, like I said, he worked my first wife so hard she would never go back for another reunion. She would travel back to me there, but they had to be non-reunion years because, yeah.
Brian, are you coming over in August?
That's the plan.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I'll see you there then.
Always some hesitation, right? There's always other stuff going on, but that is the plan.
Yeah.
Also, yes.
It would be nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I met Marie last summer, and of course, even Rosie, I've met many times. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it was nice to meet Marie last summer. So,
Yeah.
I wonder, is there anybody else here on the call that you're considering coming this summer that we can look forward to meeting you in person? That'd be fun to know.
Nobody.
There's
This is Lionel again. I didn't even know about it, but I'm strongly thinking about it now. I would love to. I've never been to Ireland, so it's I think it's overdue.
well,
Yeah.
Lionel, you got the link, okay?
I got all the links. Yeah, I saved them. Thank you so much for posting. Yeah.
Well done.
You don't need your car anyway. Just sell it and
Exactly.
use it to get a ticket. No big deal.
well, we didn't get Lionel's mother there till last summer. That was her first trip to Ireland. So,
That was fun meeting her.
yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it'd be great seeing you there, Lionel,
We
and
do,
your new wife.
we do have
Yes,
guess-
100%.
Yeah, I guess she's not so new now, but a couple of years.
Yeah, 4 years married.
Is it 4
Time
years?
flies. Time flies. Yes, sir.
We do have a Facebook group. I'm not been able to get logged in to grab it, but maybe Kathleen or
I think
Eva.
I did it.
Oh, I'm not seeing it here.
Hang on. Chat.
yeah,
Anyways,
most of the time our technology is really awesome, and then sometimes it falls down.
I I had the audacity to travel out of state, so I don't have everything that's on my computer at home. So sorry about that, friends.
Hang on, I've got it. I think I've posted it, but I'll do it again. Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, please do come and join the Facebook group, and that way we'll get information about forthcoming events and everything else. So there we go. We're there.
Yeah, that's a good place to stay connected and to also invite your family members in so they can be aware. And if it's not the gathering this year, then gathering next year, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and Eva, you got to survive the next week, huh?
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I live in the U.S. and I'm a tax accountant. So April 15th is looming large right now. So, and Rosie is one of my assistants. And if anybody's interested, yes, we are sisters and we're married to brothers. So we have mostly the same names. So our kids are all double cousins and they look like they're siblings. So,
Oh, yeah, I bet.
yeah, so, but. No, this is way more fun for me than working on people's taxes. So
Yeah, but you got to get back to it now.
oh, well, I hate to call the meeting over because it's so fun to chat, but we, like I said, we do these monthly. Next month, Marie and I, and we're going to try to rope in one or two other people. We'll talk about doing research in Ireland and even resources that are available. We're going to do it kind of like a panel. So we'll see how that goes because I'll be in person in Ireland. So we'll see how we can do with pulling that together. And then the month after, we have, like I said, Mike Lacapo and Zach will be kind of the headliner of it, but Mike's really involved in the YDNA project as well, talking about what we do and why it's important and how it actually can help your research. So, so we're excited about those upcoming events. So, anyways, and if there's any topics that you guys would like covered in these monthly classes meetings that we have, please send us a message or drop us a line on Facebook or whatever and let us know because we can certainly organize them. I'm really excited. We have over 200 people that are signed in to get the messages from our YouTube channel and subscribing to it, and that just seems really exciting to me that there's that many people that want to know what we're doing. So, anyways,
and Eva, I've added the email address to the chat as well. If anybody wants to email us, it's in there.
Kathleen monitors that email address, so she will. If you email her, she'll get it, and if there's a particular person that needs to answer the email, she'll send it out to us. So she's not our gatekeeper. That sounds like a bad word, but she's our face person on the communications there. So
yeah, and I'm in Scotland, as you might guess from my accent. So, and the lovely thing about the association board is that we're from all different countries. So, we've got representatives from America, Canada, Ireland, Scotland. Am I missing anything? No, that's us.
I think, that's us. Yeah. And if there's anyone, if you feel like you have a particular talent or interest and want to help us, we do conscript. No, that sounds like a bad thing. We do.
We don't conscript.
We do encourage people to help us and bring their talents to the board.
Taking applications.
Yeah.
That's the word, Eva. Co-opt.
Co-op. There we go. Yeah.
Co-opt. Yeah.
But maybe some people might feel like they're conscripted. We have a lot of good fun. Yes, Marie. You have to unmute. Marie's been pulled in.
I've been constructed.
Yeah.
I think I'll join you there in that.
Yeah, I'll come in too.
Lovely meeting you too, Brian, last summer. I was on mute whenever you were saying that you'd met me.
Yeah. Yeah.
My voice is starting to go now because I've been talking all day, so
Yeah.
I'm taking it easy.
Marie's our voice on the presence on the ground in Donegal.
Yeah. And
Uh,
they have a heritage exhibition this weekend on women of Inishowen that was today and will also be tomorrow. So she's been heavily involved in getting that going and enjoying the fruits of that labor for sure. So
yeah.
yeah. So well, I guess, and if I don't want anybody to feel like we're cutting them off from being able to say something, so and I don't necessarily want to just sit here and look at your all faces.
So speak now or forever hold your peace, or at least
Yeah.
Yep.
Until next month. Yes.
Okay. Next month then.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
See you all later.
Okay,
Bye.
see ya.
Bye.